Rick Neuheisel, the former head coach. He was at Colorado. He was at UCLA. He was at Washington as well. He works for CBS Sports, and he was there at the Rose Bowl last night. He joins us on the program. Things turned out like you expected last night?
I was actually a little surprised that Alabama went down. You know, Nick Saban had won 6 straight semifinal games. He'd lost that opener into Ohio State back in 2014, complained that a bunch of his guys were worried about their NFL draft stock. Were getting, all that with their paperwork, I guess it was called back then, with the NFL people giving them information as to whether or not they should declare for the NFL draft. And he said it was a distraction. And since that time, they've won and won handily in many of these games in those semifinals. So to have one explosive pass play yesterday was testament to Michigan's defense.
Yeah, I thought Michigan did a really good job. Alabama had some adjustments there. And, I thought both of those games could have gone either way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which was what made this field so intriguing, is that you could really say any one of them could, hoist the trophy.
All right. Who do you like now?
I'm going to go with Washington at my own peril, because I still think they're the most explosive team. And I think it takes some explosivity to win these games. But Michigan just basically took, Alabama out to the woodshed in terms of explosiveness. So there'll be none. There'll be none in 2024. But I just think Michael Penix and this rainmaking ability that he has with that left arm is going to be tough to handle.
Well, you played the position. What do you see with Michael Penix next year?
I think Michael Penix is going to be a great pro. He's not as pretty a left-handed passer as Penny Stabler or Steve Young. That just looks like, it's like all of us who are right-handed see Phil Mickelson's golf swing and we want it, right? We because he can do these things. But when you look at Penix, it doesn't look as smooth. But the ball just absolutely comes out of the sky just so beautifully. And that triumvirate of receivers is just spectacular. A doomsday. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's a doomsday.
You're short on sleep, aren't you?
I'm short on sleep. I apologize.
You said, I don't know how many weeks ago, that you thought that Jim Harbaugh was going to coach in the NFL next season.
I still believe it. I think, obviously Michigan's got a handsome offer on the table, wanting him to stay for the long haul. I think he loves his alma mater. I think he loves, in particular, this team, this version of Michigan. But I think if the Raiders or the Chargers come to him, I think he'll be there.
But I don't understand this. If he loves his alma mater, then why commit to your alma mater? Why?
Well, I agree with that, but he's got a pretty hefty chunk of change sitting on the table, and he hasn't gobbled it up. He was asked the question in the post-game press conference last night. No, he said he's going to be on a plane to Ann Arbor. That's his plan, not necessarily what happens next. So avoiding the question is almost answering the question.
Jim thinks J.J. McCarthy is the greatest Michigan quarterback of all time. What do you look at? What do you think the pro scouts think of J.J. McCarthy?
I think he's a very attractive quarterback, whether he's a first round. I don't see enough trajectory ability. I don't see him being able to change trajectories as fluidly as Penix does.
Yeah.
I don't see that in his game yet. But the play yesterday, Dan, where they threw the ball back to him and he made the over-the-shoulder catch and then made the beautiful overthrow, that was sensational. If you just run that one back as an NFL scout, you're going to find a way to get him in your locker room.
He's Rick Neuheisel, CBS Sports college football analyst, former college head coach. Should we move the transfer portal back or maybe ahead to after the postseason?
Like, where do we sign? I'll be the John Hancock on that one. Absolutely, we have to get the transfer portal after the college bowl season. We have to move it. Now, I know universities are saying, well, school's starting. We need to get these guys in school. Well, then we'll just give way to bowls. Then we'll just stop worrying about who plays in them, and we'll move the bowl season up to the week 0. We'll do it at the front end of the season because everybody wants to play then. But what happened over this course of this bowl season too often was not very pretty. And the most flamboyant example was the Florida State game.
So what do we do? Now, I know that the bowl games next year will mean more because there's teams actually playing playoff games. I
Right.
don't think we'll see players opting out of a playoff game.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But we saw Malik Murphy leave his team to go and transfer someplace. I mean, if Quinn Ewers gets hurt last night, we're going to Arch Manning, who played very little this year, rather than the guy who started 2 games. So that was enough information for all of us to realize we've got to tweak this and let guys finish what they start.
Yeah, and, Florida State's getting roughed up after the fact and during the fact with Georgia. But, everybody opting out, they had, in their mind had no reason to play. What do you make of Florida State's future here?
Well, it's ominous, obviously, with the ACC, and that makes it ominous for the ACC. Because we've seen what happens to the Pac-12 when all these chess pieces start getting moved. I think we've got 2 years. I think we're on the clock. The remainder of the television contract with the CFP and ESPN, ABC, Disney. Once those 2 years are done and it goes to the market, I think the market's going to move pieces around so that we get closer to the model that Chip Kelly kind of espoused here recently, talking about 65 teams, regionality, football. The rest of the sports on campus go back to, the conferences that we all kind of knew here and loved. And I think that we'll get closer to that.
What would have happened if you ran into Jim Harbaugh last night, given your history?
I would have congratulated him. And I said, what do you think about that, Jimmy?
What would he have said to you?
He would have had the biggest grin on his face. As a matter of fact, I ran into him at the Indianapolis Media Day. And, I talked to him about, J.J. McCarthy and, the lack of success in the playoffs as compared to the regular season and he said, listen, I know I have to get McCarthy, but it warms the cockles of my heart to bludgeon people. I said, you might have to have him actually throw more than 10, 15 passes a game. And he said, I know, but it's just so fun and I'm just thinking Pete Carroll and the What's Your Deal game and, 12 powers in a row with just running Howard down the Trojans' throat. He is a unique person. I actually asked Jed Fish, who had a wonderful year at Arizona, who coached for Jim. I said, if you could describe Jim Harbaugh to somebody who has no idea what the heck's going on inside his head, how would you describe him? He says, he's a guy who has been dropped in from outer space to do one thing, and that's coach football. He's a fabulous coach, but don't ask him to be normal in any other capacity.
Great to talk to you as always. Thank you, Rick.
Happy New Year, my friend.
That's Rick Neuheisel. Interesting description of Jim Harbaugh.